To reset your router as well, but we are live now, so there's no going back. I feel like T-Bird and the Crow. This is a really, really world. There's no coming back.
No.
Mm-hmm. It's cold in Colorado. Good thing I went up to the mountains to Victor, Colorado this weekend and saw the leaves change on the aspens.
Yes.
Very, very beautiful. But yeah, things are a-changing. The season is continuing on, and that's why we are here for you. It is the Audible. It's our Week 5 Waiver Wire special. Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, Dr. Jene Bramel, and things changing with the quarterback position where we begin every week on this show, which means that Dr. Jene is here to talk about those injured QBs. Dr. Jene, what are we looking at in Week 5? All right, Bloom, upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It is available at footballguys.com. It is your report, and it is ours to share right here on this show. 5 to 10% for Teddy Bridgewater and Gardner Minshew. And lots to say about both, especially with those weapons around him, like a Robbie Anderson and a DJ Chark. Well, you can get a piece of those guys if you need Teddy or Gardner. They're at the top of your list this week.
Yeah, and see, can we take a step back before we jump into the quarterbacks? Just have a little larger discussion about the waiver wire in the year 2020, because it was quite a week, Tennessee, Pittsburgh was supposed to be played Monday or Tuesday, then it wasn't played. Then New England, Kansas City might be played, ends up played on Monday. Tennessee, Buffalo still not 100%. And we talked about this in the offseason and the preseason, Cease, that this was going to be a different year, that he was going to make fantasy football different. And I think this week, going through this week, whether you did it as a commissioner or a player, really familiarize you with at least one of the ways it'll be very different. So now we're looking at our edges a little differently, right? Because we're all about upside. But now you don't know if on Saturday that running back, because someone's on bye, this your number 3 running back now might have to play for you, So something to keep in mind. And certainly if your league allows conditional players, now we saw a lot of that come to the forefront thanks to Adam Harstad saying, if the game's not played, this is who I want in place of this player before the game start. That can affect whether you value upside over depth. I think quarterback depth now, I know there were some people who had to take 0 seats in the main event, like the FFPC main event, big money. Dozens of teams had to take a 0 because their quarterbacks were Cam Newton and Ben Roethlisberger. So think about these things. I say in your fantasy football process on Tuesday, set your lineup and just look at what your bench looks like. And if it's really thin, you might want to make one move to make sure that you're okay. Being okay quarterback this year might be Teddy Bridgewater. And we're seeing this team level off. A little turbulence upon start. They played the Raiders. Then, the Bucs defense makes offenses look bad, getting some things going against Arizona, and now finishing drives without Christian McCaffrey. And we're seeing, curiously here, the running backs producing on a par with McCaffrey. We'll talk about Reggie Bonafan in the running back segment. And, Teddy just looks comfortable. It's wonderful. Man, I love any time we can take a little bit of time out to say Teddy Bridgewater looks good and has fantasy value after what he's been through. And then Gardner Minshew. Minshew more the opposite, right? He hasn't necessarily been through struggle and strife in his football career. He's been a little more charmed, but a lot of that charm is coming from him and his play. And we saw with DJ Chark back, and it was the Cincinnati matchup. And by the way, we're looking at Carolina and that Arizona matchup going forward too, after how poorly Arizona played. But certainly Cincinnati's defense is one we're going to target. Hopefully this is a great game for Lamar Jackson and company this week. But Minshew with DJ Chark looked a lot better. Laviska Shenault making some plays downfield also. So this is still an exciting offense, which makes Gardner Minshew likely playing from behind a lot this year, an exciting fantasy quarterback.
And we also should take a moment, Bloom, in kind of your opening speech there.
Yeah.
Take it easy on commissioners now.
Yeah. Well, no, Cease. Let's take like I do. I'll make a larger thing out of this, Fantasy football commissioner is a tiny, tiny little thing. Okay? I mean, fantasy football is a tiny thing. By the way, can I just say I mean, I feel like we all want to say this sometimes, and that's my job, and I know that it's helping you and it's helping me to do this job. Every now and then I feel like that we're spending so much time talking about fantasy football right now. It's kind of silly. But I can use fantasy football as a predicate to talk about some things we should be talking about, right? Because fantasy football commissioners are taking responsibility for keeping the train on the tracks, keeping the thing going forward. Somebody has to make these decisions. Very reminiscent of what we've been seeing in our country all around. There are lots and lots of people, as we in our ramshackle way. Time doesn't stop for anybody, right, Cease? No one's figured it out yet. Put that in one of your comics, Time is going to keep going forward, so life's going to keep going forward. And even though, commissioners, sometimes you're running into problems because people are saying, I don't want the rules to change in season. Totally valid. Sometimes you're running into problems because people are saying, if you don't change the rule, come on, have some compassion, or during this time things can change. And really, it's the keeping of the peace in the league and keeping that shared experience and a reason for everybody to have something to interact positively in. That is the gift, that is the actual value in our lives. And commissioners are doing that. And all around our country, there are people that are taking various levels of flack or risk to do that. And to them, including Dr. Jene Bramel, I raise my drink today, Cease.
Yes, raise it high and raise a glass for Derek Carr, Justin Herbert. If you need them at 3 to 5 percenters here in the quarterback group, we'll get to the 1 percenters, but let's get these two out of the way because they're separate from that 1% group.
Yeah. And again, see, usually on the waiver wire on quarterback, we have a lot of action as we go through the year. This year, it might be quieter because there's 7, 8, 9 guys that you're starting basically every week now. Aaron Rodgers certainly establishing himself there. But if you haven't, Derek Carr made a few pre-2016, like Derek Carr when we thought he's a good, young, exciting quarterback, throws in that loss to Buffalo. And he doesn't have his number 1 and number 2 receivers right now. That's interesting. This week, Vegas gets Kansas City. Kansas City's defense is certainly not one that has a big bullseye on it for fantasy football anymore. But I like what Carr did. Justin Herbert. See, I knew it. I can't remember who it was now that tweeted it out. I knew there was a name that we weren't saying about Justin Herbert because we talked about how well prepared he looked, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know who the name is?
Who is it?
Pep Hamilton.
Of course it's Pep, dude.
Pep Hamilton, right? So this is somebody that has come in to this organization and he has made, I think you have to give him at least some of the, he's the quarterback coach. He was hired in April. Wow. Justin Herbert looks good. And each week, CC looks a little less clumsy, a little less robotic, which means those gifts come to the surface. Mm-hmm. This is exciting. The Chargers fans that have held on through what they've had to endure the last few years. How different is the complexion of this franchise going forward now? Remember, they're playing without the right side of their offensive line. I know in the short term, Austin Eckler's hurt, and it's a bummer, and this team isn't necessarily going anywhere this year. But wow. And from fantasy, you also get some wow moments, throwing touchdowns to 3 different undrafted free agents. I think wasn't Pep Hamilton in the XFL with Donald Parham also?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a XFL head coach. I don't know if they were on the same team, but that would be quite something. Anyway, it's exciting. It's exciting to look forward to watching Justin Herbert. And if you need him this week against the Saints, we'll see if those corners are healthy. But he can do it with undrafted free agents.
Okay, big breath as we go through the 1 percenters. Jimmy Garoppolo will be back. Drew Lock will be back maybe as soon as this week. I'll be out at practice in 3 hours. Unless they change the practice time. Damn it, Broncos, stop doing that. I make a schedule. Anyway, so we'll see. We'll get an early update at least. And we won't know really till Friday. Tua Tagovailoa, 1 percenter, and they say, hey, we're going to take it easy, take it slow, and, well, it's about time for that to happen. Speaking of which, there's Kyle Allen, 1 percenter, very deep 2 QB superflex leagues, like Joe Flacco, like Brett Rippon, who would start if Drew Lock doesn't start this week against the Patriots. And speaking of the Patriots, there's Jarrett Stidham as the last 1 percenter, very deep 2 QB superflex leagues.
Yeah, lots of churn at quarterback. And maybe this is also the segment that should just make you feel like, why am I not playing in a 2 quarterback superflex leagues? They're more fun. That's the only leagues you're going to matter to look at Drew Lock. I mean, just there's too many weapons depleted for him to make a run at being a fantasy relevant quarterback this year in a sustained way. Jimmy Garoppolo, San Francisco's offense, it's efficient enough. Debo Samuel's back, Kittle's back, etc. But you still are going to see this be a balanced offense. He should be back this week, though, as we saw Nick Mullins come apart before our very eyes. Tua, and then it's just a reminder, Cecil, whenever the head coach has to confirm that the starter will remain the starter, what are we looking at? 2-3 weeks?
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's on the schedule. Tua's coming. If you wanted to get out ahead of that, it's time to do that in your 2 quarterback superflex leagues. Kyle Allen, we'll continue to watch this Dwayne Haskins thing. I don't know if he had to be confirmed as the starter yet. We'll see Kyle Allen soon enough. We'll see Joe Flacco in a Jets uniform behind that line against Chandler Jones. Jared Stidham, too bad he didn't start the game, or it would have been a lot more interesting Monday night. And then Rippin, and see if you can add a little nugget for people in the 2 quarterback superflex leagues if they're desperate. And again, as we saw, you may think you have a starting fantasy quarterback, and then on Saturday find out you don't. So, even Brett Rippin, he actually bailed me out. I picked him up in a 2 quarterback league because I didn't have Ben Roethlisberger or Garoppolo. Cease. He got me 12. I needed 9 to win. I think it was over Aaron Rudnicki, our wonderful football guy staffer.
Yeah, I know my quarterbacks have bailed me out, Feslo G. So there you go. And Brett Rippin will run the system as designed. Yeah. He has a weak arm, but he'll run the system. He's really smart. He'll change plays, and coaches love him. And coaches love him for the kind of quarterback coach he's been with Drew Lock.
Right. Is Lock back this week? 50-50, they said?
Yeah, 50-50. We'll know Friday. And again, I'll be out of practice, so we'll see what's going on there. Let's see what's going on with Dr. Jene Bramel when it comes to those injured running backs. And that means we're going to have to talk about Nick Chubb. Here's Dr. Jene with those injured RBs for week 5. How long have we waited for Damien Harris, right? And just been like, when's it going to be? So I understand we've got another 25 to 50%er here, Latavius Murray Bloom. I really just want to talk about Damien Harris.
Sure.
Like, finally, we saw it. He broke the seal, was over 100 yards. Like, let's do that again, man. More Damien Harris, please.
And Murray, we don't have to talk about much. He should have been rostered in most leagues. This is wide netting it. People are using our app in Yahoo public leagues and things like that. And these players can be out there. Latavius Murray finally coming through there. As bottom line there, Saints backfield going to produce big, whoever it is. Ty Montgomery on IR right now, so that helps Murray if Kamara goes down. Damien Harris. And what's wild here, Cease, is Harris had a 100-yard game with Cam Newton out. But what you saw is, yes, the Patriots in his first game off of IR, we're excited about him. And going back to the preseason, Mike Reese doesn't hype players up. Mike Reese doesn't give us fluff pieces. So when Mike Reese said the team was really excited about him and wanted to see what he could do, I believe that. Now, there was also this idea of the 4-headed or 5-headed backfield. Well, Michelle now on IR. Isn't that sad, by the way?
Yeah,
that he has his best game in a while and then, injured again. And I just sad. It's sad to see that struggle of a player against his body. I think that we've had that with Kerryon Johnson now too. But this team is going to establish the run. They're going to shorten games. Harris was able to get enough opportunity to finally break that long run to get to 100 yards. He's their best all-around running back. And I think when Cam Newton's back out there, while yes, Cam Newton could get 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns in a game, and if you have Harris, you're disappointed in a way. Some games, like last week, it was Rex Burkhead getting 3. Harris is going to get those. So I say 25 to 50. I mean, in a 0.5 PPR, in a league where the waiver wire's thin and you don't expect there to be somebody else, it's a 50+% guy. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that you're overreacting to feel like I've got to go get Damien Harris because there might not be something better on the waiver wire at running back. But the other side of this is this season has shown, it's only week 5, and I feel like we've done a half a season worth of waiver wire takes already.
Right.
And needed them and played them and actually had our weeks hinge on the waiver wire pickups we've been making. So that makes me feel more conservative about putting a 50+% on anybody right now.
Okay, Chase Edmonds is not 50%, not 25%, but 20 to 40%. So some maneuvering there as Kenyon Drake continuing to disappoint. Let's throw in DeAndre Swift and Joshua Kelly there. We'll get to the other guy, you know his name, a little bit later. Maybe not as high as you think out there, people. But Joshua Kelly, DeAndre Swift, and Chase Edmonds, the next segment here.
Edmonds is exciting because, he's scoring and playing well. You wonder about Arizona becoming more of a committee, or even Edmonds becoming the starter. I mean, they have an $8 million 1 year.
Kingsbury said it. He said he could be a starter.
Yeah, and I think one of the things people need to understand that is really illustrative of the mercurial nature of the NFL and fantasy football. See, it's like inertia, right? Like, while a situation is churning, humming along the way that it's supposed to, it feels like it's just going to stay like that forever. You know, like when we look at teams in the offseason, we feel like, well, this is the way they're going to be all year. But in the NFL, once that inertia is overcome and a situation starts to move slightly, it can just flip immediately. You know, these things happen whiplash quickly. We might just watch the Cardinals next week against the Jets, and it might be Edmonds ahead of Drake one of these weeks if it continues to go this way. So you have the injury upside with Drake, who's underperforming. You have Edmonds playing well, and then you have the possibility of Edmonds. I think he's the long-term player on this team. At least he'll be with them next year. DeAndre Swift, they're using him, and he's producing. He's actually had a couple of fantasy relevant performances already, even though he's not being used that much. Investing in the line, right? You just feel like they're always going to be underachievers. They're always going to be mishandled. Maybe Matt Patricia gets fired at some point. That's a whole other topic, Cecil. How does Bill O'Brien change our view of Texans fantasy commodities right now? But I just think the talent there and the idea that eventually Adrian Peterson could take a smaller role for more Swift if he was dropped. I think he's a priority upside hold. Now, Kelly, let me put it this way, Cecil. I just don't think he's an automatic go-get-him guy. And I have him at 12 to 25% to do the thorough work of this and rank him about where I would, but I would think most are going to have him higher. And yes. I would say that Kelly should, if you have him, trade him away. I mean, I think that we'll get to Justin Jackson and the 1%ers. I don't think he's a better runner than Justin Jackson. Jackson's healthy right now. Maybe Jackson gets hurt again, and Kelly just on pure volume has value. But I also think with this Chargers line being banged up, I don't think Kelly is going to produce well. I just don't think this running game is going to produce well until Austin Eckler is back.
Speaking of back, there's a player who's almost back, but we'll get to him in just a little bit. Dearness Johnson, and going back and charting plays, Bloom, you like what he did once Nick Chubb went down, and notice Kareem Hunt's never going to be on this list because he's rostered in every league. But Dearness Johnson looking well now, so that change of pace back. So in certain matchups, certainly a flex play. While Kareem Hunt will be that RB1, set it and forget it, no-brainer starter. Keyshawn Vaughn, as you have a couple of ankle injuries to worry about in that Buccaneers backfield, of course, Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy. So now you've got Ronald Jones. Sure, Keyshawn Vaughn can come in, be that hard charger, be that pass catcher. Speaking of hard charging and pass catching, well, there's Jamal Williams, 7 to 15% as well. And we had a question from Francis. Lindsey back soon. Lindsey probably would have been back last week, but they had a short week. Again, somebody's going to be out of practice in a couple hours, and I expect Philip Lindsay to be out there to ready to go, and at least a what the heck flex, if not just a regular flex play, coming back in that Broncos backfield. So let's talk about this next section, the 7 to 15%ers, and Lindsay is 5 to 10%.
Yeah, lots of different flavors here. Dearness Johnson obviously looked good. Cleveland running game looks good every week. Dallas's defense looks bad every week. So some of that's not Dearness Johnson. But the lead here, I think, is that Kareem Hunt comes into this game missing a couple of practices with a groin injury. And he plays well. But you're that much closer to Dearness Johnson's starter for the Browns in a good running game. So 7 to 15% is conservative, but know that we could be talking about him with a much higher number next week or one of these weeks. Not Nick Chubb. I mean, top 20 or 30 players that makes football fun to watch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like you watch a Cleveland game just to watch how he runs the ball. That sucks, man. Keyshawn Vaughn, you know, he bowled through a guy at the goal line. He caught the ball. Ronald Jones had those 3 drops, so LaShawn McCoy's banged up. You could easily see Keyshawn Vaughn become that check down receiver for Tom Brady, which has value in and of itself in PPR leagues. If Ronald Jones, you know, sees if Ronald Jones like leaves the milk out instead of putting it back in the fridge and it goes bad or something, you know what I mean? Then well, Keyshawn Vaughn's gonna get his chance. You know, you didn't put the toothpaste cap on the tube again. Nah, that's it. Keyshawn Vaughn gets a start. You know. Right. You just wonder with the nature of Bruce Arians and Ronald Jones if Keyshawn Vaughn's not going to get his chance. So again, maybe I'm being a little conservative there. Jamal Williams, we just saw his emergency play PPR value. Now maybe that goes away when everyone's healthy in the Green Bay passing game, but you also have the Aaron Jones injury upside. Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet, Cease, from A.J. Dillon that makes me think, oh my God, if Aaron Jones goes down, A.J. Dillon, everyone's going to want to have A.J. Dillon. I think he might underwhelm, and Jamal Williams will be that high value player. So we haven't necessarily looked at Jamal Williams in the vein of an Alexander Madison or Latavius Murray, like, oh, if the starter goes down. But I think with the quality of this offense and the scoring opportunities it's going to present, because people were saying Aaron Jones touchdown regression. Aaron Jones touchdown pace is up from last year. Some of that's Aaron Jones, some of that's the offense. Jamal Williams gives you a chance to get a piece of the offense. I love Phillip Lindsay, and Cease, I guess I'm underestimating him again, you know. But I just feel like the Broncos' offense isn't necessarily where anything great for fantasy is going to grow. That being said, if Melvin Gordon goes down, it's another stage for Phillip Lindsay to show that we underestimated him.
Yeah, and he's out there hate practicing again. 1%ers, Reggie Bonafan, Malcolm Brown, who may have been dropped, Bloom, right? As people kind of try to navigate that Rams backfield. DJ Dallas, 1%er, Avonte Freeman, and Wayne Gallman doing enough for 1%ers. And there's Justin Jackson. Some people might say, Bloom, well, why wouldn't he be just a touch higher?
It's my lack of faith in the Chargers running game. And also his lack of faith in him to stay healthy, and I still think Josh Kelly's going to get more of the touches. I just don't think it's an exciting situation. And see, just to go back to what you said about Malcolm Brown, another side to the uncertainty of fantasy football in 2020 is that some players might have been dropped, right? You might have made some tough decisions to drop somebody, so you didn't take a 0 somewhere.
Right.
So we can't really say, I mean, talk about wide netting it. You might be surprised at what you see on the waiver wire. Watch those transactions when they come through, if you get the email notification, to see who gets dropped. 1%ers, you know, let's be thorough. Let's always be thorough here. Reggie Bonafan now the backup to Mike Davis, but we saw him look pretty good in the productivity of this situation. Carolina's on the rise. Malcolm Brown, and it's funny because maybe the right answer was just don't have any Rams running back. But we know that Brown can play, and we know the coaches like him. If they're going to force someone, it seems like they're forcing Brown on the field more than the younger running backs. Let's talk about the Giants real quick. Freeman will get more touches. Gallman looked better as a runner. It's Dallas. So if you have to have an emergency play at running back, Green Bay and Detroit out this week, if you have to have an emergency play at running back, then a Giants back could do it. But my favorite 1%er, Cease, DJ Dallas. And looked better than Travis Homer, finally getting on the field with Carlos Hyde out with the shoulder. But then that's the thing, right? Chris Carson got banged up again, no concussion, but every game we hold our breath with Chris Carson because he plays all out, not because he's injury prone or a slow healer or something. And then Carlos Hyde. And see what happens with these power backs and a shoulder injury.
They never are the same again.
Yeah, he's not going to be. Carlos Hyde is not going to be Carlos Hyde this year. Because of that shoulder. If they have him in a non-contact jersey, remember what happened to Jordan Howard last year? So DJ Dallas, see, we could be talking about DJ Dallas as a 25-50% guy in the blink of an eye. Now, the Seahawks have a bye in week 6, so just watch this. DJ Dallas, I think, is that preemptive pickup, getting ahead of the curve. Try to find a way to get him on your roster.
Well, it's one of those DJ Dallas, you could pick him up now. Maybe it doesn't work out right now, but then come fantasy playoff time, you're riding DJ Dallas. That's how it could turn out. Now, how did it turn out for those wide receivers in week 4, and how does that impact your waiver wire decisions in week 5? Here is Dr. Jene Bramel to tell us the latest about those wide receiver injuries. That's right. We cannot be stopped. And T. Higgins, Bloom, my love for T. Higgins cannot be stopped.
No.
I love him. I love him. I love what they're doing there in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. And we're being thorough, but T. Higgins has to be at the top of the list, 25 to 50%, along with getting louder with Crowder, Jamison Crowder, 24 to 40%, Debo Samuel back as a 20 to 40% as well, if he's out there.
We won't spend a lot of time here, just in case, being thorough, if Higgins wasn't picked up yet or it's a short bench league, great things are going to happen with him and Joe Burrow. Crowder, 7 catches, 100 yards is routine for him. Just needs to stay on the field. This week, Flacco, probably against, maybe you're not loving Crowder, but he's showing what he can do. And then Debo Samuel, and I struggled with this one, but at some point you just got to give respect for what Samuel has already done on the field last year. And I don't want to underestimate him because of structural concerns about, well, how many touches will there be to go around in the 49ers offense with Brandon Ayuk there now? And we saw what George Kittle can do. So if Debo Samuel wasn't picked up ahead of his slightly early return in week 4, you got to do something about that.
Got to do something about it when you go down the list to Visca at 15 to 30%. Again, we talked about Gardner Minshew at the top with the quarterbacks. And let's talk about Tim Patrick, 10 to 20%. And know this, that Brett Rippon's favorite guy, it's not Jerry Jeudy.
Right.
KJ Hamler's probably the new John Ross. At least you didn't take him in the top 10. But it's Tim Patrick. So if Rippon's playing, Patrick's going to be the apple of his eye. And the talent's always been there with Timmy Pats. Yep. It's just being buried on the depth chart and being hurt. So now he's not buried on the depth chart and he's not hurt.
Right. And Laviska Shenault also probably not out there. But if it's a short bench league, he hasn't done anything that big yet, and getting more downfield targets, everything trending up for him. Yeah, let's talk about Tim Patrick. Cease, was it like a Dory Jackson? There were a couple of the Pac-10 or Pac-12?
Pac-12.
Yeah, Pac-12. There were a couple of, I'm an old man. There were a couple of corners, NFL-bound corners, that Tim Patrick looked very good against in college. Very, very good. Very good in that size, speed, fluid athleticism way that gets us excited. Like T. Higgins, right? I mean, he just can't stay healthy. Couldn't stay healthy earlier in his career. But again, I like appealing to this, right? If someone just didn't know anything about football and they watched the game Thursday night and they watched Tim Patrick, they'd probably say, that's a pretty valuable guy. He can move, he's fast, he's big, he's coordinated, he's got good skills. That looks like a starting NFL quality receiver. I mean, it was the Jets, all right, but still. So maybe, again, I'm underselling Tim Patrick at 10, 20%. But at the same time, we've got a long road, the marathon through the minefield. But I think Tim Patrick is someone that his value can rise when Drew Lock is back. And Noah Fant's banged up. Hamler, like you said, Cease, we know about his injury problems. Patrick's going to get targets just as long as he stays out there on the field.
Yeah, just got to stay healthy. And do you still have a MySpace page? Or
I never took it down. I didn't do much on my MySpace page, though. I got it set up, but then Mark Fletty told me about this thing, Twitter, and well.
And then it was over. We were definitely early adopters, which is funny now because now I just curse social networking. Anyway, 6 first car took leaded gas. People won't even remember that, like leaded gas. Yes, that's right. By the way, I think we have a drinking / bong ripping game that our listening audience is waiting for. Water pipe. Because you haven't said wide netting it yet.
No, I haven't.
So we're wide netting it here.
Always.
Alshon Jeffrey, 3 to 5%. Scott Miller, 3 to 5%. David Moore, very interesting, 3 to 5%. Traquan Smith. Okay, we'll see what happened there on the Michael Thomas front. Let's go ahead and throw in the 1% as well, just to wrap up these wide receivers. Demir Bird, Jeff Smith, and Olamide Zacchaeus. And I totally botched that.
It's okay. Alshon Jeffrey should be back in a week or two. Opportunity. He may get hurt again. May have an AJ Green moment there. Scott Miller, we know that Brady likes him a lot. Chris Godwin should be back soon, but OJ Howard's out. Just, these are those wide receivers like a Miller that value could start to trend back up with opportunity or production that begets more production, or, just these are seeds you're planting on your bench. That's how I look at David Moore. He's making some big plays, Cease. But also, remember, we think about this with running backs, but not wide receivers. If DK Metcalf, who wasn't known for durability at Ole Miss, goes down, if Tyler Lockett, who's had his share of injuries, goes down, Dave Moore's a starter and let Russ Cook show.
Yeah.
He's a main ingredient. And he showed he can play, and he's got chemistry with Russ. So David Moore, a name that we should be thinking about more. Traquan Smith. And again, in this wild and woolly year, we might care more about that immediate need depth. So Traquan Smith might go back to catch a game when Michael Thomas comes back, which could be this week. Should be this week, I guess. I don't know. But we know he can play. We know he can produce. He's had 2 good games out of 3 as a starter. There's a lot of people we drafted to play in our lineup every week, Cease, that haven't had 2 good games in the last 3. So it may take another injury. Emmanuel Sanders is playing better. But again, it gives me some comfort to have guys on my bench that maybe have the talent but not the opportunity, knowing that opportunity can come and will come in the year 2020, it seems, in just about every way. Damiere Byrd was getting some targets downfield. Jared Stidham will be interesting to watch. When Cam Newton comes back, we might like Byrd even more. Jeff Smith making some plays for the Jets. It's week 5 and we're talking about Jeff Smith.
We're talking about Jeff Smith.
Who are we going to be talking about before the end of the year? Maybe we make it to the end of the year, the NFL season. And Olamide Zaccheaus, who was excellent possession receiver. And, again, sees how quickly things change. It's Jones and Ridley and Gage. Okay, Jones is banged up. No, Jones is out. Ridley's banged up. He's not doing anything. Gage isn't doing anything now. Here's Zaccheaus. That's just how quickly these things change. So depending on who's playing in that Carolina-Atlanta game, Zaccheaus may be a nice sleeper going into week 5.
By the way, our man Kyle here with maybe the greatest.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I just got a kick out of that. Everyone rock on when we talk about the tight end position, and that means Dr. Jene Bramel joins us once again to go over those injured tight ends here entering this week. And Dr. Jene, there's some help out there, even though some guys are banged up. What do we got here? I always try to intro Dr. Jene differently every time. All right, Bloom, upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire, Robert, Tanyan, you told everybody. I hope they listened. 20 to 40%, because you saw it and you've seen it. And what is it? 5 touchdowns in 3 weeks? What is it? I can't even count that high.
No.
But Robert Tanyan is the answer.
Yeah. Happy to say he was on the waiver wire show last week. And hope you got him. A bye week this week. So, spending a lot of your wallet on a player who's not playing might seem a little bit odd. But here's the thing. Even when Devontae Adams comes back, which he should come back after the bye, even when Alan Lazard comes back, we'll see him again this year. It's that red zone love. See, he's tied with Mike Evans leading the league in touchdown catches. And some of that is Aaron Rodgers. But remember, this is Aaron Rodgers' guy, along with Lazard. Narrative matters in fantasy football. Narrative matters in fantasy football when Aaron Rodgers is enlightened, apparently, and creating all this production for the players around him. Tanyan, first and foremost. This is fun, and dare I say it, Cease, maybe the sweetest fantasy football victories, going down 25 into Monday Night Football, and all you had was a tight end spot. You picked up Robert Tanyan, and he did it for you, When you it's the blowing up the Death Star, right? There's one way. Like in hindsight, we look back and there was one way that you could have won the million in the Millie Maker. If you change these 2 players, there was one way. When you actually find that one way, it feels good. And
remember jock blocking, as our man Darren says. He's got Kittle, he's got Mandrew.
Yes.
And he could still get Tanya and jock. Yeah, we're all about that.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in a traditional league where you can only start 1 tight end each week. Yeah, you got 2 tight ends sitting on your bench. Yeah, sure. Somebody's not scoring against you.
And see, so I can expand on that. I talked about this during draft strategy time. If you do have an Andrews or a Kittle or a Kelsey, and you let someone get a Robert Tanyan, then you're giving up the advantage you create. You want to make it, when you have one of those top tight ends, that it's really hard for everyone to hang with you at tight end. So it's maybe a better use of the money in some ways tactically than just building your depth at other positions.
Yep. Yep. And Bloom, we also have to remember about position scarcity. There's just not that many of them out there that are doing this. You have a chance to you didn't get Kittle, you're upset. You didn't get Kelsey, you're upset. You didn't get Mandrew, you're upset. You have the chance to write that in week 5.
Yeah.
You have a chance to hang with those boys, right? In week 5. So it feels really boring talking about the rest of the tight ends.
Sure. It is.
Yeah.
It's
Eric
why
Ebron.
Right.
Austin Hooper. What are you gonna say? Drew Sample. And those Tampa guys are 1%ers without OJ Howard. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, we got the high of Robert Tonyan and Bloom, and now let's talk about the regular. See, this is what everyone else has to deal with. This is why you get Robert Tonyan. I don't care who you have. This is who everyone else has to deal with.
See, this is why, again, as a writer, I know you can appreciate this. We couldn't have written this any better. We couldn't have scripted it any better. Why do you want to be aggressive with Robert Tonyan, even though he's going to his bye? Drew Sample, let's call him discount Dalton Schultz. He's in a good situation. He's going to get production. He's an adequate player. They're both in that Austin Hooper mold of sometimes we watch a tight end. He's the classic like catch it and fall down tight end, but the situation's so good that he can create value, a la Austin Hooper. And we see what Austin Hooper is doing now for Cleveland. There's your transition. Well, he caught a touchdown, got 5 catches. And you wonder with Nick Chubb hurt, does this start a slide in this Cleveland offense to maybe having to pass a little more than they wanted to? We'll watch against Indianapolis this weekend. So Hooper, and see, there might be a time, by the way that we're saying Harrison Bryant's worth more than Austin Hooper, maybe this year. So just keep an eye on that. And then Gronkowski, and Ebron. Of course, Eric Ebron. He might have been dropped because he was on bye, and he's going to get back in there. Had a good week going into the bye with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Gronk and Brate. I still think that structurally you have a lot to overcome for a Tampa tight end to have value. And OJ Howard, sucks to see him going down. But still, this is a 2 tight end situation. You still have what value there is here divided up among 2 very capable players. So as a what the heck tight end to throw in, especially on Thursday night against the Bears, because you want reason to enjoy a game with Nick Foles at quarterback, that would be a reason to do it. But I'm still not excited. I threw them in because that is how bad it is at tight end. You might be having to rely on one of them.
Can I throw in a 6-pence guy?
Yeah, sure.
Well, it probably won't be active again because we really got to see more of Nick Vannett.
Yeah.
Van's not playing, and that means Albert Okuwe.
Oh, Albert O, yeah.
And if Drew Lock comes back, Albert O and Drew Lock had 17 touchdowns together in 2 seasons at Mizzou. Albert O, who's someone close to the Missouri program, I'll tell you off air who it was, told me that he was going to be a top 50 pick had he come out with Drew. And he stayed. And even with Kelly Bryant, who's not a slappy, but a good college quarterback, but not Drew Lock. And Albert O's game fell off. He falls. Broncos pick him up per Drew Lock's request. All I'm saying is no Noah Fant. You like what Fant was doing. Albert Okuwebunam could be that guy. So there you go.
Cease, I hope he hits. Cease, I hope he hits. Just so that everybody in football has to ask you, how do you pronounce his name again?
It took me a while to learn, but I did learn. And Drew Lock helped. Okuwebunam.
Yeah. That's professional.
Yep. All right. Professional at this one thing. I mean, I guess there's one thing I'm good at.
Yeah.
Shouting this next thing because you need it. You need it. And I was at an expo / comic book convention on Saturday, Bloom. And, a lot of people come up for comic book stuff. A lot of people would come up just to say hi or talk some football, right? And had some of these prints. Look at that. Some great prints there of Gravis that were for sale at the comic book convention. So anyway, I had a listener, Bloom, one of our listeners. He came out and he just said, I've gone through some surgeries. He's a little bit laid up, had a leg injury thing, fell through a manhole cover, dude, in the city. And anyway, lots of stuff going on health wise. But he said, I just want you to know. And he was very emphatic. He came out there to just see me. And he'd been a supporter of Gravis for a while. And he said, I just want you to know how helpful it is. I listen to you and Sig. I listen to your guys' show. And it keeps him away from the pain. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like, you and I have talked about this before, Bloom, right? Like, we're not curing cancer. We're just sitting here talking fantasy football. But when we hear from people like that, and anybody that reaches out, we thank you guys for that good energy, for that positive energy. But it just means so much when you're out there, because we need you as much as you out there. This is therapeutic. This is fun. This is kind of the break from some of the real world nonsense that we all have to deal with, and some very, very serious situations. So when he said that, and he just wanted to extend his thanks to you as well, Bloom, and me, and I want to extend the thanks to the listening audience, because it is therapeutic, especially this next part. Because no matter where you are, you get to all participate with me and all of us together. It's kind of how we all come together for one moment, because there's some players that are just pissing you off. So it is time to say it with me. Cue the Chuck. Shut him down.
Actually, we'll talk about when we get to hold on some of these players. Shutting them down. Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead, Andy Isabella was nice while it lasted. Russell Gage, not really sure what I'm waiting around for there. And we might tennis match back and forth, pick them back up, drop them, but shut them down means I'm not going to tell you you're just going to regret. Even Curtis Samuel. I love Curtis Samuel, but I just think at this point we see what's there. Anthony Miller. Look, Anthony Miller and Jimmy Graham, Anthony Miller and Jimmy Graham are both players that you might say, okay, well, they had a good week. They're back on our radar. But then you're inducing yourself into potentially relying on Nick Foles. Only worse than that is relying on Brian Hoyer. So, I'm okay with dropping them. Marvin Jones, in the shorter bench, tighter leagues. Am I going to feel like I'm missing out on something great if I drop Marvin Jones at this point? No. Irv Smith. And we need to get the detectives on, like, what exactly happened with Irv Smith.
Right.
Because I don't know if it's how Minnesota's developing him or how he's being developed. This couldn't have been the plan when they took him in the second round. That in his second year, he'd be a bit player. Adam Troutman, if you picked him up for 1 week to see what happens. Boston Scott. Just Philadelphia's running game is anemic enough that I don't even know if I want the number 2 back there. Jeff Wilson back to the bench, really, behind Jerick McKinnon, like Brian Hill. Also, both of these guys were not that exciting of backups to begin with. Carlos Hyde, like we said, the shoulder. Because what's Carlos Hyde for? 20, 25 carries a game. You can't do that with that shoulder. He's not an essential hold. Jordan Howard's not an essential hold. Logan Thomas, you know what you're going to get there. KJ Hamler, the new John Ross. Oh, man. And the toughest one, Cease, and we can talk about this before we transition to hold on, Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram might have a 2 or 3 touchdown game at some point in him this year. He might, but he's also not going to get more than 10 or 11 carries. And you have to think at some point rational coaching is going to take over, and the more dynamic backs they have in Edwards and Dobbins are going to take touches away from him. It's a whiplash thing, Cease. One game, we might just tune in and see that Ingram is more of a ceremonial starter. And once you let Dobbins and Edwards out, you're not putting them back, baby. No, not the way these guys are running the ball right now. So Ingram is a guy, and, if you have a tough pickup, you're like, I could pick up Robert Tonyan behind my Kittle, but I'd have to drop Mark Ingram to do it, or even someone like Tim Patrick if your wide receivers are tight. Dearness Johnson even or something. I'm not attached to Mark Ingram right now.
And Mark Ingram doesn't do anything better than Gus Edwards.
No.
At this point in his career. So there you have it. You also have some players that you just can't pull the ripcord just yet. You can't do it. It is your heartstrings. It is your team. You're maneuvering through all of this 2020 season. And there's just some players you just like having on your fantasy team.
Yeah.
Right? They're not doing anything. You don't start them, but you just like having them on the team. It's a guarantee in the box and Tommy Boy, right? Just feels good. Makes you sleep better at night. So who are some of those week 5 hold-ons, Bloom?
Good luck charms, right, Cease? Or when you win the Stanley Cup, sometimes the injured players are out there. They'll let them. Sometimes the captain will go right to an injured player. So, if you can win the title, keep them on the roster so they can get a ring, right? Have fun with your teams. And Cease, I want you to chime in on some of these because these are tough this week, right? Eckler and Chubb, if your league does not have IR spots.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Don't drop them. Don't drop them, okay?
Drop your league because it doesn't have IR spots, but don't drop those players.
To be fair, Cease, we lag a little behind because IR spots in redraft leagues is kind of a new thing, and there was just one player designated to return, right? So it wasn't even that big of a deal, and it was still all in the game, kind of like the Week 4 New England Kansas City decisions. Like you just have to make decisions. Like, am I going to hold on to someone who's on IR? So it's just a new thing in football because IR used to mean season over, and now an IR doesn't necessarily even mean he'll be gone for the month. So perhaps commissioners were a little behind, and again, people are saying don't change the rules during the season. So I'll give people a pass here. No matter what, be nice to your commissioner. Hold on to Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Hold on. And again, you can give me individual permutations of this. Opiner, by the way, you can ask me questions there all week. Individual permutations, I'm not going to say keep Gabriel Davis over Tim Patrick or something like that. But I am going to say try to hold on to Gabriel Davis, John Brown, Cole Beasley, because it's a Buffalo receiver. See, so we have to think of Seattle, Green Bay, Buffalo, Dallas. These are situations where competent players, right? Like Drew Sample and Dalton Schultz. Competent players, if given the opportunity, are going to produce.
That's why I'm not dropping on Michael Gallup. I don't care if he's not doing anything right now. Right. I want a piece of that when it does hit.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth, Cecil. It's great. We're riffing. And then from there we can go to Cedric Wilson in deeper leagues. Cedric Wilson, again, Cedric Wilson versus, Zacchaeus or something like that. I mean, you might need Zacchaeus to fill in a spot this week, but we already saw what Cedric Wilson can do as the number 4 receiver. So you're holding on to him, I think, at this point. Individual permutations are tough. Darrell Henderson, I still won't drop him, even though Sean McVay is going to be a pain because of the talent. Same thing goes with Cam Akers at this point. Again, if I have to drop Cam Akers to get Damien Harris, that's tougher. Tony Pollard can still win your league for you. Mike Williams. You know what you should have been going through your head as you watch Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson get behind the defense and score touchdowns? Mike Williams. Mike Williams with Justin Herbert. Dynasty leagues, you're loving that right now. Mo Ali Cox. This is one cease where you just indulge me. I get it. Trey Burton's back and Jack Doyle's there, and I love to think that efficiency will beget more opportunity. Talent creates opportunity. It's so much ability with Mo Ali Cox. I know you might not be able to keep a second tight end. All right. I'm just putting him in hold on because to me he matches the spirit of this segment, Cease. I want to hold on to Mo Ali Cox. Leonard Fournette, Cease. I didn't really know what to do with him because Keyshawn Vaughn's going to get a chance. And if Keyshawn Vaughn looks better, then where does that leave Fournette? But at the same time, we saw Ronald Jones have a 100-yard game. We saw Fournette already have a 100-yard game. And this isn't a bad situation in the past. So, it's tough. Like if you're saying Fournette or Dearness Johnson, I have to think about it. Once you get above that, I'm probably dropping Fournette. What do you think as someone who has Fournette on one of your teams?
Yeah, I'm sitting there waiting for him to come back. Like I'm holding on, waiting for that opportunity. So he's definitely one of my hold-ons, Bloom. And I'm kind of desperate for running backs too.
Yeah. Your Giants, maybe you hold on for one more week to Avonte Freeman. I've already mentioned. Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, because it's Dallas. And they go through the NFC least segment of the schedule. Mike Gesicki, it's tight end. I mean, look, even if you have to suffer through down weeks, he's already shown us the ability to do 8 for 130 and a touchdown.
And Tua will need a security blanket named Mike Gesicki.
Right. So, and that's the other thing is quarterback change could change the pecking order of the targets there. Henry Ruggs, there was the Ruggs ratio in week 1. If he can get healthy again this year, he's going to be the centerpiece of the pass offense along with Darren Waller. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I probably hold through the bye because it's Aaron Rodgers, because it's what Aaron Rodgers is doing with his players for now. Again, these are tough calls. So now we get to the even tougher calls, Cease. All right. T.Y. Hilton. I want to hold on because and there's another player we're going to talk about that fits this description also. Like, you want to give respect to what a player has done, right?
Yes.
I mean, you want to say, this guy has done so much for us over the years and has looked so good and embodied excellence on the football field that you really do hold on to it. I mean, we're really getting this kind of on the couch meets the waiver wire show.
Well, while at the same time, you want to be recognized where they're truly at today.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton's, he's done. It's this part of his career. Like,
yeah. And that's where he was AJ Green. I mean, is it too hasty to drop AJ Green?
No.
So, these guys I put under hold on, but really because it's difficult.
It's like a respect hold on.
Yeah. I mean, it's that I get it if you look and you go to drop, like going to drop AJ Green for Tim Patrick is just kind of like, oh, really? That's where we are? That's where we are, Mm-hmm. Dropping AJ Green for Zacchaeus, maybe we're getting a little bit crazy. Or even dropping AJ Green for somebody like David Moore, who's a speculative pickup. Maybe we'll give him one more week. But the point is, it's right there. T.Y. Hilton, especially with the low volume pass offense, that one is tough. Here's another puzzler. Brandon Cooks. I mean, I don't think that Brandon Cooks just suddenly hit the wall like AJ Green did. And it wasn't really sudden with AJ Green. It was over a couple of years, all right? And Hilton was banged up a lot last year, too, for the record. Do we hold on to Cooks with the hope that there's a release in this organization with the release of Bill O'Brien that helps things get straightened out and Cooks has value? Plus, Will Fuller could always get hurt at any point. Or see some, it stings, right? Like, it leaves a scar when someone gives you a 0, especially if someone gives you a 0 and you lose by like 2.
Mm-hmm.
And not an injury 0 like what Calvin Ridley basically gave you. I mean, it makes you, this is where that cathartic shut him down comes in, right? Like, you might want to shut down Brandon Cooks because he gave you 0 and you lost because of it. I still see paths to value, and I still want to see what this Houston offense looks like. See, it sure sounds to me, we're going like Thursday night kind of stuff here. It sure sounds to me like Bill O'Brien was kind of like an ogre, Oh,
yeah.
Like feared, not liked in the organization. And when a character like that is no longer, his shadow isn't looming over everything, then things can start to grow again. The sunlight comes. So Brandon Cooks is a hold on for me this week.
Sig holding on tightly in that clutch.
Hold on whatever you can.
There you go. That's very, very true in these interesting times. That is a wrap for the Week 5 Waiver Wire special here on the Audible. We certainly appreciate everyone out there for checking out footballguys.com. Sign up for our free daily newsletter. It's got opinions typed in by yours truly, Sigmund Bloom, Joe Bryant. So, hey, check us out. And you like what that does, then consider subscribing to footballguys.com. It's an annual fee, not a monthly fee. And, it's a way to help out. You want to support the show, support us by subscribing to footballguys.com. And we thank you guys very much for that. Speaking of subscribing, do all those YouTube things. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks our listening audience. Follow us all on Twitter at Jene Bramel, at Sigmund Bloom, at The Audible, at Cecil Lammey. He's Sigmund, I'm Cecil. We are The Audible. Everyone stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.